Welcome to section 9 in our series on dynamic support and resistance and the rule of threes. On section 8 we left off our analysis with this section here. But now let's start building to our application. Now that we have the concepts down as far as the rule of threes and dynamic support and resistance, let's see how we can apply it to our actual trading. And let's go and find a good clear example, and we'll go, let's see here, we'll go around this area here. So what we'll do is, I see a breakout here. This is a breakout bar. This is the closing high, and we came up here and we broke out above it. Okay, and as far as our dynamic support and resistance, we have our red bar that's formed right here, and then once that red bar forms, bam, we draw our dynamic resistance line here. Now let's look at 1, 2, 3 bars. By the third bar, we have not broken minor support. And just so we're clear again about minor and major support and resistance, okay, this is minor support, and let me designate and say minor swing support, okay, as opposed to dynamic support and resistance. And it's a minor support because once we break above a resistance level, it was resistance, okay, now we broke above it, now it becomes support, okay, because it is a prior top support will be considered minor support. And bottom, we'll go down here, this is our last swing bottom support, okay, is called major support, and the trend can't change until major support is broken. Okay, now when we have 1, 2, 3, once we see this green bar form, this is the close of the third bar, and now what we could do is move our support line to dynamic support right here, and it will still keep us in the same area as our swing top here, but it's so tight, and as we talked about earlier, swing support and resistance takes precedent over dynamic support and resistance. So we have our rule of three failure right here at a support level, which is good. And typically when a bounce off of minor support is usually a prelude to a very nice move upward, and we can see how that transpired here. But back to our theme at hand. Okay, now once we get our close here, and more importantly, this third bar, not only did it not close below support, it actually closed above the close of the prior bar, and it's a green bar. Okay, so now it's also created a dynamic support level. So we've got a dynamic support level created. We've got a swing high support level created. And now we could wait for a pivot. Now this is how many times you can avoid missing an entry, because we get our pivot. This is going to be our swing pivot bar here, and the high of this bar is going to be our pivot point here. Now what if we didn't want to take a chance on missing our entry? Now the pivot, now price did pull back and on this bar here and came down and to our pivot point, but as you already know, sometimes price will not back up all the way to the pivot, and this is where a pre-pivot entry can give you some advantages at times if you choose to use it. It's a little bit more risky, yes, because the pivot confirms direction. Okay, and right here we just have a turn, but this is going to be pretty reliable here because we're bouncing off of minor support here. But what would be our best entry? Well, we would have two choices here. As usual, we have a conservative entry and we have an aggressive entry. A conservative entry after this bar formed would be to enter on a pullback to the low of this bar, which would also be support, minor support. But most likely, because this bar, when it closed above the close here of this prior red bar or prior down bar, the aggressive entry would be to enter long on a pullback here to the close of the red bar. Where would your stop go in either case, the conservative entry or the aggressive entry? You would want your stop to go about 5-6 pips below here, but not a physical stop. You'll get taken out. You want it to be a mental stop. You don't want it to be visible. You don't want everyone to, because the markets are so transparent now. Too many players out there can see your stop, and you'll just make it a big old target. And we can see in this case the very next bar actually pull back to the close of this bar, so we can enter. But if we had wanted to take our more conservative entry and come back down, wait for a retest of support, then we miss the move. And that's always the case, whether it's a pivot pullback or a pullback to support resistance. You know, we always risk missing the move. Okay, now that's the price we pay for being safe. So that's our insurance. So there's nothing wrong with that either. But just so you know, if price should close above the close of that prior bar, and this just doesn't apply to dynamic support and resistance either. This applies to most cases. But now I'm running out of time on this section, and we'll pick up here where we left off in section 10.